May it please the court, counsel, members of the jury. Ms. Tam just took the stand, and like she does for a career, she acted. She told you a story that ignored the facts and cast herself as the victim of some sort of misunderstanding. But members of the jury, this isn't a movie set. After you deliver your verdict, no credits will roll. This is real life. And when people commit crimes, we hold them accountable. And the evidence in this case has shown that the defendant committed fraud, that she scammed her daughter's way into college. From the checks she wrote on the same day of the meeting with the man she hired to commit this crime, to the fraudulent resume that was included in her daughter's application, to the sworn testimony of Mr. Matthew himself. That evidence, it's clear, it's conclusive, and it's proof that the defendant can't buy away. The truth is simple. She had it bought, but she got caught. You see, today you heard from a man named Spencer Matthew. Mr. Matthew told you how he ran a service called Reach for the Stars, which specialized in falsifying documents used in the college admissions process. Mr. Matthew told you how that company catered especially to the rich and the powerful, charging six-figure sums for falsifying test scores, doctored resumes, even bribes to college coaches. Now, the defense's case, it's built on attacking the testimony of Mr. Matthew. They say that because Mr. Matthew pled guilty to fraud, he can't be trusted, that he's a criminal. And members of the jury, the defense is right. Mr. Matthew is a criminal. And that's exactly why the defendant reached out to him to help her commit a crime. We didn't pick Mr. Matthew. The defendant did. And because we have charged Ms. Tam with honest services wire fraud, we had the burden of proof. We had to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, two things. First, that the defendant participated in a scheme to fraudulently obtain admissions offers for her daughter. And second, that that scheme included sending false information digitally. Now, much of this is undisputed. The defendant's daughter was moved to a special testing location and her scores were altered. Those test scores, along with a fraudulent resume and recommendation letter, were sent digitally through the online portals of the colleges she applied to. What this case comes down to is whether Ms. Tam knew about this fraud, knew she was committing a crime, and did it anyway. And that's exactly what the evidence has shown. You see, first we saw that initial email where the defendant reaches out to Mr. Matthew. He asks him to keep their correspondence confidential and sets up a meeting on January 2nd of 2016. Now, as opposed to Mr. Matthew, the defendant's recollection of that meeting is conveniently blurry. She says she can't remember what was said, can't remember if her daughter was there or not, can't even remember if she wrote two checks that totaled $150,000. What we know for sure is that it was the defendant who contacted Mr. Matthew to arrange that meeting, at which she was personally available, and that it was her who sent him $5,000 after her daughter was accepted. From the beginning to the end, it was the defendant who coordinated this crime, and now she's trying to hide everything so she won't get caught in a lie. One of the few things that the defendant has chosen to remember about that meeting is that she paid Mr. Matthew $10,000 and nothing more. She said that Mr. Matthew, that $140,000 check, that's a coincidence. Members of the jury, the defense wants you to believe that Ms. Tam made a spontaneous charitable donation to a cause that she had never supported in the past and that just so happened to be run by Mr. Matthew. Not only that, members of the jury, those two checks were made out on the exact same day, January 2nd, the day of the confidential meeting that the defendant arranged. Now, of course, Ms. Tam, she took the stand and she said she would have never paid Mr. Matthew six figures for college admissions consulting. But look at what she said before she got caught. In that initial email correspondence you have before you, Exhibit 3, Ms. Tam responds to Mr. Matthews saying that his prices go into six figures with a simple sentence: price is not a concern. The evidence has shown that she paid that six-figure sum she promised to. She had it all bought, she just got caught. Now, in exchange for that cash, Mr. Matthew did exactly what he promised. Ms. Tam's daughter was moved to a different testing location and her scores went through the roof, from a 1090 all the way to a 1480. Then he helped her construct a false resume, casting her as a skilled golfer. That resume was included in all three applications that the defendant's daughter submitted: Stanford, Berkeley, USC. Ms. Tam herself said, and I'm quoting, that she was very involved in the college admissions process. But when it comes to the finalized resume that her daughter submitted to every college she applied to, she claims she never even saw it. It's just another instance of the defendant trying to pick and choose which facts she wants to be true. She wasn't in the dark. Mr. Matthew didn't go behind her back. She just got caught. But that's not all Mr. Matthew did for Ms. Tam. In order to fully ensure her daughter's admission to USC, her safety school, she contracted Mr. Matthew to bribe the golf coach of USC to write a false letter of recommendation. It has gone undisputed that Mr. Matthew paid that golf coach $30,000. And yet, the defense wants you to believe that Ms. Tam only paid him $10,000 for college admission consulting. According to them, Mr. Matthew paid $30,000 of his own money to secure admission to a school for someone he didn't even know. She had it all bought, she just got caught. In the spring of 2017, the defendant's daughter was accepted to all three schools. 3 spots, taken from kids who played by the rules, who worked hard, who didn't have the luxury of buying their problems away. Gone. The defendant sends Mr. Matthew a reward, $5,000 and a hoodie from the university her daughter will now be able to attend. She had it bought. But on March 25th of last year, she was caught and charged for the fraud she had committed. Members of the jury, one of the building blocks of this country is equality of opportunity. We trust that if you work hard, if you play by the rules and do things the right way, you have a fair shot to achieve your goals and aspirations. The defendant, she didn't care for that value. She saw equality, the spots that would be given to the kids that deserve them, as an obstacle she could cheat her way around. But she got caught. Members of the jury, when we see injustice, we have to hold those who perpetrated responsible, to show them that nobody, no matter how rich, how famous, is above the law. And today it's up to you to do just that. We ask that you do justice in this case and find the defendant guilty of fraud. Thank you.